Hi, my name is Molshri Sinha. I'm working as a psychologist at Pinnacle Blooms Network. Today's topic is Beck Depression Inventory. Before I start telling you about Beck's Depression Inventory, let me throw some light on depression. Depression is otherwise known as major depressive disorder or clinical disorder. According to DSM-5 diagnostic criteria, depression is also known as major depressive disorder or clinical depression. Those who suffer from depression, they experience persistent feeling of sadness, hopelessness, and they lose interest in all the activities which they used to enjoy. Apart from emotional disturbance, they also experience physical changes such as digestive issues or chronic pain. To be diagnosed with depression, symptoms must be present for at least 2 weeks. Now let me brief you about Beck's Depression Inventory. It was created by Aaron T. Beck. It is one of the widely used for measuring severity of depression. It has 21 items and it is a self-report rating inventory for measuring characteristics, attitude and symptoms of depression. Mostly its items are related to key symptoms such as mood, guilt, sense of failure and self-dissatisfaction, punishment, suicidal ideas, loss of libido, etc. After filling up the questionnaire, add up the scores. Highest possible scores would be 63 and lowest possible score would be 0. If the scores lies between 1 to 10, it means ups and downs are considered normal. If the scores lies between 11 to 16, it means mild mood disturbance. If the scores lies between 17 to 20, it means borderline clinical depression. If the scores lies between 21 to 30, it means moderate depression. If the scores lies between 31 to 40, it means severe depression. If the scores lies above 40, it means extreme depression. If the scores comes between 17 to 20, that means borderline clinical depression, then it is very important to consult a psychologist. Thank you. All the very best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
Hi, myself Najia, psychologist working in Pinnacle Blooms Network. Today's topic is Bell's Adjustment Inventory. Bell's Adjustment Inventory. In 1934, Bell developed this test to measure individuals' adjustment problems in a variety of situations: home, school, health, emotional and self, etc. For example, health in adjustment measures individual shyness, submissiveness and introversion, and home adjustment measures the person's satisfaction and dissatisfaction home life, and emotional adjustment measures person's depression, anxiety and nervousness. This test is developed in the two forms: student form, occupational form. It has 142 questions to be answered in the form of yes or no, and this is a valid, reliable. Thank you. All the best from Pinnacle Blooms.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
Hello everyone, this is Shawn Pagalapati, psychologist and AV therapist. Today I want to discuss about cognition and its process. What is cognition? Cognition is the mental process or action observing like from thoughts, from emotions, from objects, from anything, and it gives us idea about how is our attention, how is our working memory, and how is our acquiring knowledge through many things, and how is our attention sustained or not, and how we are react to situations. This is all about higher level of thinking, means the abstract thinking. Human cognition is conscious and unconscious related to a situation and a problem. There are many and different type of context to evaluate the cognition, like psychology and psychiatry and neuroscience and linguistics and anesthesia and computer science, biology, anthropology, like many different contexts use this cognition to elevate a person's clearly. In this way, the cognition is a very important to know about for how our a process of mind is. With elicit all these things, we can know about ourselves very well to plan anything. Thank you very much. All the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
హలో ఎవరివన్, దిస్ ఇస్ శ్రవణ్ కుమార్ పాకలపాటి, సైకాలజిస్ట్ అండ్ ఏబీ థెరపిస్ట్. ఈరోజు నేను మీతో కాగ్నిషన్ గురించి మాట్లాడదాం అనుకుంటున్నాను. అసలు ఈ కాగ్నిషన్ అంటే ఏంటి, దీని గురించి తెలుసుకోవడం వల్ల ఉపయోగాలు ఏంటి? కాగ్నిషన్ అనేది మన యొక్క మెంటల్ ప్రాసెస్ అండ్ యాక్షన్. అంటే మనం ఏదైనా నాలెడ్జ్ని ఎలా ఎక్వైర్ చేస్తాం, ఎలా నేర్చుకుంటాం, ఎలా ఇంటర్ప్రెట్ చేస్తాం, ఎలా లోపల ఉంచుకుంటాం, కావాల్సినప్పుడు రిట్రైవ్ చేస్తాం అనే దానికి ఈ కాగ్నిటివ్ లెవెల్ లేదా ఈ ప్రాసెస్ మనకి ఉపయోగపడుతుంది. ఈ యొక్క కాగ్నిటివ్ ఫంక్షనింగ్ అంటే ఒక మనిషి యొక్క నాలెడ్జ్ ఏ రకంగా ఉంది, తన యొక్క జడ్జిమెంట్ అండ్ ఇవాల్యుయేషన్ ఏ రకంగా ఉంది, అండ్ తన యొక్క అక్నాలెడ్జ్మెంట్ అబౌట్ పర్టికులర్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ గురించి కానీ, వీళ్ళ యొక్క అక్నాలెడ్జ్మెంట్ ఎలా ఉంది, వీళ్ళ యొక్క అటెన్షన్ ఎలా ఉంది, సస్టైన్డ్గా ఉందా లేదా సెలెక్టివ్ అటెన్షన్ ఉందా లేదా, మెమరీ ఏ రకంగా పనిచేస్తుంది, లేక వర్కింగ్ మెమరీ లెవెల్స్ ఎలా ఉన్నాయి, లాంటి మెనీ థింగ్స్ని, చాలా విషయాల్ని మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది ఈ కాగ్నిషన్. అలాగే ఈ కాగ్నిషన్ చాలా కాంటెక్స్ట్లో, వివిధ రకాలైన కాంటెక్స్ట్లో ఈ కాగ్నిషన్ గురించి చూస్తూ ఉంటారు. ఎందుకంటే ఆ కాగ్నిషన్ బట్టే మనిషి యొక్క బ్రెయిన్ ఇంటర్ప్రిటేషన్ ఎలా ఉంది, వాళ్ళ లెవెల్ ఎలా ఉంది అనేది తెలుసుకుంటారు. కాబట్టి ఆ కాగ్నిషన్ని ఎలిసిట్ చేయడానికి, ప్రాసెస్ని తెలుసుకోవడానికి మెనీ కాంటెక్స్లో ఉపయోగిస్తూ ఉంటారు. ఆ కాంటెక్స్లు ఏంటంటే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అనస్థీసియా, ఆంథ్రోపాలజీలో కానీ, లింగ్విస్టిక్స్లో కానీ, సైకియాట్రీలో కానీ, సైకాలజీలో కానీ, న్యూరో సైన్స్లో కానీ, బయాలజీలో కానీ, అండ్ అలాగే కంప్యూటర్ సైన్స్లో కానీ, ఇలా డిఫరెంట్ యాంగిల్స్లో ప్రతి దాంట్లో కూడా ఇప్పుడు ఈ కాగ్నిషన్ గురించి రీసెర్చ్ జరుగుతూ ఉంది. ఎందుకంటే ప్రతి దానిలో కూడా ఏదైనా సరే మనిషికి సంబంధించి చేసేటప్పుడు ఆ కాగ్నిషన్ అనేది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. వాళ్ళ కాగ్నిటివ్స్ లెవెల్స్ ఏ రకంగా ఉన్నాయో తెలుసుకుంటే వాళ్ళ యొక్క నెక్స్ట్ బిహేవియర్ని కూడా మనం ప్రిడిక్ట్ చేయడానికి కూడా ఇది చాలా ఉపయోగపడుతుంది. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్. ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Pinnacle Blooms Network ప్రపంచ వ్యాప్తంగా స్పీచ్ డిలే, ఆటిజం స్పెక్ట్రమ్ డిజార్డర్, కాగ్నిటివ్ డెవలప్మెంటల్, సైకలాజికల్ రుగ్మతలతో బాధపడుతున్న దాదాపు 80 కోట్ల మంది పిల్లలు మరియు పెద్దల జీవిత ప్రమాణాలు మెరుగయ్యే విధంగా దశాబ్దాల రీసెర్చ్ తో కూడినటువంటి అత్యంత ప్రభావవంతమైన స్పీచ్ థెరపీ, ఆక్యుపేషనల్ థెరపీ, బిహేవియరల్ థెరపీ, సైకలాజికల్ కౌన్సిలింగ్, చైల్డ్ డెవలప్మెంట్ మరియు రీహాబిలిటేషన్ సర్వీసులు అందిస్తున్న ఏకైక స్పెషల్ ఎడ్యు హెల్త్ కేర్ సంస్థ Pinnacle Blooms Network. ప్రపంచంలోనే మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా మిరాకిల్ అనే పేటెంటెడ్ టెక్నాలజీ సహాయంతో అత్యంత పారదర్శక థెరపీ సర్వీసులను అందిస్తున్న ఏకైక సంస్థ Pinnacle Blooms Network. 100 మందికి పైగా నిష్ణాతులైన థెరపిస్టులతో మీ మరియు మీ పిల్లల బంగారు భవిష్యత్తు కొరకు పాటుపడుతున్న సంస్థ Pinnacle Blooms Network. భారత ప్రభుత్వ ప్రతిష్టాత్మక స్టార్టప్ ఇండియా అవార్డు పొందిన భారత్ హెల్త్ కేర్ ప్రైవేట్ లిమిటెడ్ యొక్క అనుబంధ సంస్థ.
Hello everyone, this is Pagalpati, psychologist and ABA therapist. Today I want to discuss about cognitive processing. How is cognitive processing? Each of your cognitive process will tell you how is your knowledge and how is your processing speed and how is your other things happening in your life. Through the task, it will tell you. And third thing is attention divided. Is your attention divided means if you take a task at a time, 2 tasks at a time, are you paying attention at a time for 2 tasks or not, is tell you the processing of your cognition. And also the process of your short-term memory and long-term memory related to memory processing. And the memory processing is good means if it is a short-term memory means immediately after acknowledge something, retrieving is there or not. And the long-term memory means if we know about something and we are retrieving that information for the times or not, it will tells you how is your logic and reasoning working. And also the next thing is auditory processing. It tells you the how is your auditory processing. If you hear something, your brain will be interpret that things in a organized manner. And are you retrieving or not by the times whenever you want, it tells you. And the last thing is visual processing and the processing speed. Visual processing means whatever you see the things that your brain is processing correctly or not, and after processing whenever you want the things you can retrieve or not, it will tells us. And also the processing speed. How is your processing speed? Immediately after doing something, are you ready to processing those things or not, it will tells you. In this way the many processing things, cognitive processes will tell you about yourself and your memory and about your brain. Thank you very much. All the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
హలో ఎవరివన్, దిస్ ఇస్ శ్రవణ్ కుమార్ పాకలపాటి, సైకాలజిస్ట్ అండ్ ఏవే థెరపిస్ట్. ఈరోజు నేను మీతో కాగ్నిటివ్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఎలా ఉంటుంది అనే దాని గురించి మాట్లాడదాం అనుకుంటున్నాను. అండ్ ఈ కాగ్నిటివ్ ప్రాసెసింగ్లో కాగ్నిషన్ అంటే ఏంటో మనం తెలుసుకున్నాం. అండ్ అలాగే ఈ యొక్క కాగ్నిటివ్ ప్రాసెసింగ్లో మెనీ థింగ్స్ ఉంటాయి. అంటే మీ అటెన్షన్, అంటే మీ సస్టైన్డ్ అటెన్షన్ ఏ రకంగా ఉంది, అంటే ఏదన్నా ఒక టాస్క్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు ఒక టాస్క్ నుంచి వేరే టాస్క్కి పూర్తవకుండానే జంప్ అయిపోతున్నారా, టాస్క్ని పూర్తి చేస్తున్నారా అనేది ఈ యొక్క సస్టైన్డ్ అటెన్షన్ మీకు తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే రెండవది సెలెక్టివ్ అటెన్షన్, అంటే పర్టికులర్గా మీరు ఏదైనా టాస్క్ మీద ఇంట్రెస్ట్ పెట్టి ఆ టాస్క్ పూర్తయ్యే వరకు కూడా దాని మీద పర్టికులర్గా ఇంట్రెస్ట్ పెడుతూ దాని మీదే ధ్యాస పెడుతూ ఉంటున్నారా లేదా అనేది ఈ యొక్క మన సెలెక్టివ్ అటెన్షన్ అనేది తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే అటెన్షన్లో ఇంకొకటి డివైడెడ్ అటెన్షన్, అంటే మీరు ఏదైనా రెండు టాస్క్లు ఒకేసారి చేస్తున్నప్పుడు రెండు వాటికి ప్రయారిటీ ఇవ్వగలిగి చేయగలుగుతున్నారా లేదా, ఆ ప్రాసెస్ మీకు ఉందా లేదా అనేది ఈ యొక్క డివైడెడ్ అటెన్షన్ మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది. అండ్ ఇంకొక టైప్ ఆఫ్ ప్రాసెస్ ఏంటంటే మెమరీ గురించి, షార్ట్ టైం మెమరీ అండ్ లాంగ్ టైం మెమరీ. షార్ట్ టైం మెమరీని మనం వర్కింగ్ మెమరీ కూడా అంటాం. అంటే ఇప్పుడు నేర్చుకున్న విషయాల్ని మనం రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా లేదనేది ఈ యొక్క మెమరీ మనకు తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే లాంగ్ టర్మ్ మెమరీ, మనం ఆల్రెడీ తెలుసుకున్న విషయాల్ని బ్రెయిన్లో ఉంచుకోవడం ద్వారా మనకు అవసరమైనప్పుడు ఆ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ మనం రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలగడమే ఈ యొక్క లాంగ్ టర్మ్ మెమరీ. అలా మనం రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా, దాన్ని ఉపయోగించగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా అనేది కూడా ఈ యొక్క ప్రాసెస్ మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది. అండ్ నెక్స్ట్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ వచ్చేటప్పటికి లాజిక్ అండ్ రీజనింగ్. మనం ప్రతిదానికి లాజికల్ వేలో ఆలోచించగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా అలాగే ప్రాసెసింగ్, ఈ లాజిక్ థింకింగ్లో ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఏ రకంగా ఉంది, సేమ్ ఒకే రకంగా ఉంటుందా, ప్రతిదానికి అవసరమైన లాజిక్ని ఉపయోగిస్తున్నామా లేదా అనేది కూడా ఈ యొక్క ప్రాసెస్ మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే ఆడిటరీ ప్రాసెసింగ్, అంటే మనం విన్న విషయాలు ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో దాన్ని రాయడం ద్వారా లేదా మనం లింగ్విస్టిక్ రూపంలో దాచుకోవడం ద్వారా మళ్ళీ అవసరమైనప్పుడు ఆ విషయాల్ని మనం రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా. లాంగ్ టర్మ్ మెమరీ ప్రాసెస్, ఈ ప్రాసెస్ మనకి మనం ఆల్రెడీ ఎప్పుడో నేర్చుకున్న విషయాలు, మన బ్రెయిన్లో ఉంచుకున్న విషయాల్ని మనకు అవసరమైనప్పుడు, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఏదైనా ఒక రెస్టారెంట్ గురించో ఒక ట్రీ గురించో ఇలాంటి చాలా కాన్సెప్ట్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ కాన్సెప్ట్ ఎదురుపడినప్పుడు ఆ కాన్సెప్ట్ గురించి ఆల్రెడీ మనకు తెలుసు కాబట్టి దాన్ని కరెక్ట్గా రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా ఎవరిదన్నా నేమ్స్ కానీ అవి కానీ మనం గుర్తుంచుకోగలుగుతున్నామా, వాళ్ళని చూసినప్పుడు వెంటనే మనకు అది గుర్తుందా లేదా, వస్తుందా లేదా అనేది ఈ యొక్క ప్రాసెస్ మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే నెక్స్ట్ థింగ్ విజువల్ ప్రాసెస్, అంటే విజువల్గా మనం చూసిన విషయాల్ని మన అటెన్షన్ ద్వారా మనం నేర్చుకున్న విషయాల్ని ప్రాసెస్ చేసి ఆల్రెడీ బ్రెయిన్లో ఉంచుకున్న విషయాల్ని మనం రిట్రైవ్ చేయగలుగుతున్నామా లేదా, ఆ స్పీడ్, ఆ ప్రాసెస్ స్పీడ్ ఎంతవరకు ఉన్నదనేది మనకి కాగ్నిషన్ తెలియజేస్తుంది. అలాగే మన యొక్క ప్రాసెసింగ్ స్పీడ్ ఏ రకంగా ఉంది, మన స్కూల్లో కానీ బయట కానీ ఆటల్లో కానీ చదువుకునేటప్పుడు కానీ ఏదైనా జాబ్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు కానీ ప్రాసెసింగ్ స్పీడ్, ఏదైనా విషయం గురించి మనం తలుచుకోగానే ఆ ప్రాసెసింగ్ స్పీడ్ లెవెల్స్ ఏ రకంగా ఉన్నాయో ఈ యొక్క కాగ్నిటివ్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ మనకి తెలియజేస్తుంది. ఇది తెలుసుకోవడం ద్వారా మనం మనిషి యొక్క పూర్తి విషయాల్ని తెలుసుకుని అండ్ ఏమైనా తేడా ఉన్నట్లయితే మనం దాన్ని సరి చేసుకునే అవకాశం ఉంటుంది. Thank you very much. All the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Pinnacle Blooms Network ప్రపంచ వ్యాప్తంగా స్పీచ్ డిలే, ఆటిజం స్పెక్ట్రమ్ డిజార్డర్, కాగ్నిటివ్ డెవలప్మెంటల్, సైకలాజికల్ రుగ్మతలతో బాధపడుతున్న దాదాపు 80 కోట్ల మంది పిల్లలు మరియు పెద్దల జీవిత ప్రమాణాలు మెరుగయ్యే విధంగా దశాబ్దాల రీసెర్చ్ తో కూడినటువంటి అత్యంత ప్రభావవంతమైన స్పీచ్ థెరపీ, ఆక్యుపేషనల్ థెరపీ, బిహేవియరల్ థెరపీ, సైకలాజికల్ కౌన్సిలింగ్, చైల్డ్ డెవలప్మెంట్ మరియు రీహాబిలిటేషన్ సర్వీసులు అందిస్తున్న ఏకైక స్పెషల్ ఎడ్యు హెల్త్ కేర్ సంస్థ పినాకిల్ బ్లూమ్స్ నెట్వర్క్. ప్రపంచంలోనే మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా మిరాకిల్ అనే పేటెంటెడ్ టెక్నాలజీ సహాయంతో అత్యంత పారదర్శక థెరపీ సర్వీసులను అందిస్తున్న ఏకైక సంస్థ పినాకిల్ బ్లూమ్స్ నెట్వర్క్. 100 మందికి పైగా నిష్ణాతులైన థెరపిస్టులతో మీ మరియు మీ పిల్లల బంగారు భవిష్యత్తు కొరకు పాటుపడుతున్న సంస్థ పినాకిల్ బ్లూమ్స్ నెట్వర్క్. భారత ప్రభుత్వ ప్రతిష్టాత్మక స్టార్టప్ ఇండియా అవార్డు పొందిన భారత్ హెల్త్ కేర్ ప్రైవేట్ లిమిటెడ్ యొక్క అనుబంధ సంస్థ.
Hi, I'm Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. Voice assessment. A comprehensive voice assessment is conducted by a speech language pathologist by using a standardized or a non-standardized assessment tools. Basically, it is done to know about the existing voice problem. What are the causes of it? What are the symptoms of it? And what kind of intervention program can be applicable for this existing voice problem? So, for basic voice assessment, the speech language pathologist may use perceptual analysis as well as instrumental analysis. Perceptual analysis is the one which the individual, the speech language pathologist, hears the client's voice and judges about the vocal parameters like pitch, loudness, intonation, and other aspects. Whereas instrumental analysis is done based upon using some softwares like Dr. Speech or Speech Station or any other software. Basically, the assessment is done to consider the voice problem, the existing voice condition is normal or abnormal. This comparison is done based upon age of the client, gender of the client, and the quality and the voice quality which he possesses. It begins with brief history of the voice problem, the major concerns about the voice condition, as well as the present vocal symptoms and the pain or discomfort which the client is experiencing. By considering all these factors along with a standardized test procedure, speech language pathologist does the overall comprehensive voice assessment and diagnosis would be provided by a speech language pathologist, or you can call them as vocal therapist, voice therapist. And based upon the assessment details, the intervention program is planned further. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
I'm Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. Aphasia and its assessment. Aphasia is a condition where an individual loses the language abilities which he possesses before the morbidity, before the condition, like if a brain stroke patient loses his language abilities, or due to an accident, if an individual loses his language abilities, he possesses completely perfect normal language abilities before this accident, before this incident, that is called as pre-morbidity. So due to some disaster happening in his life, he has lost his language abilities, and these linguistic abilities need to be thoroughly assessed, and intervention program need to be planned to make him into the normal stream. That is nothing but aphasia assessment, and this aphasia assessment is done by a speech language pathologist, that he or she may apply standardized assessment tools or a nominal or a non-standardized assessment tools to assess the language abilities of the client, which may include the client's naming abilities, repetition abilities, understanding of language abilities, and expressive language abilities, along with fluency and construction abilities. Like this, various parameters, various linguistic parameters are assessed thoroughly by using a standardized scale by the pathologist, and then based upon the type of aphasia which the client is having. Like all these assessments are carried out by direct method. Few information we may take from the client or the family member, like spouse or caretaker or mother, and then along with this information we will directly give some instructions to the client and take the direct information. We observe the client in various situations and take down the information. Along with this, the symptoms which we are noticing need to be correlated with the medical reports. By considering all this information, holistic diagnosis is made. Is that a Broca's aphasia or Wernicke's aphasia or global aphasia? What kind of aphasia it is exactly? So based upon the type of aphasia which the client has, intervention plan is made by a speech language pathologist. So basically, assessment is preliminary and it provides the necessary information for the therapy to be carried out. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. I would like to tell you about articulation assessment. What is articulation assessment and how it is done, why it is important, like that. So, articulation is to deal with the pronunciation. if the child is misarticulating some sounds, that means if the child is not able to pronounce certain sounds perfectly, then it needs to be assessed properly, because articulation is developed over a period. During the childhood period, every individual will be in a learning process. He or she will not be able to utter all the sounds perfectly. Yet, due to as the child is in developmental period, the child acquires the speech sounds. But after a certain period, after the developmental period also, if the child possesses this articulation errors, that need to be assessed thoroughly so that we can know whether the child is in the normal stream, normal developmental stream, or he is away from the normal developmental stream, and whether the child has any articulation disorder or articulation problem. So this kind of assessment is basically done by a speech language pathologist. So speech therapists, you can call them as. So speech language pathologist does OPM evaluation. So the basic apparatus to produce speech sounds is our oral structures. So the oral mechanism is thoroughly assessed structurally and functionally by a speech language pathologist, and because if there is any structural anomaly with these articulators, this could be one of the cause for misarticulations. Without structural anomalies also, an individual may possess articulation errors. So a thorough assessment is necessary to rule out the cause of the problem. And this assessment is done subjectively, that is perceptually, as well as instrumentally. So by applying some standardized and non-standardized test tools, a speech language pathologist will be able to record the client's or kid's pronunciation and provide you the proper diagnosis whether the child has any misarticulations or it is okay as per the norms, as per the age and other criteria, or if the articulation problem is really serious, then it need to be intervened at appropriate age itself, because this may cause many other consequences as well. If these misarticulations are continued by the child and he moves from class, first class to second class to third class, as his age is increasing, then he may face many problems, many psychological problems as well, because as the age is increasing, the child will have self-consciousness of the problem, and other peer group children may have fun. So checked out at an appropriate age, early in the childhood period itself, and early intervention is best for this misarticulation problems as well. So whenever you notice any articulation problem in any child, make sure that you suggest them to go for articulation assessment by a speech language pathologist, so that where is the problem, what kind of sounds are not uttered by the child, particularly in which context the child is not able to produce certain sounds at word level or at phrase level or at sentence level, at which level the child is misarticulating, mispronouncing the speech sounds, is thoroughly assessed by a speech language pathologist, and proper diagnosis will help the child for intervention. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100.
Fluency is the ease with which our speech is carried. So, it's an important aspect of our speech. And if the fluency is affected, our communication will be hampered. So, as considering the speech fluency as one of the important aspects in speech, language and communication, if there is any problem with fluency, such as stammering, or you can call it as stuttering and clattering, these two problems need to be assessed thoroughly. If the client has stammering problem, fluency problem, then he may exhibit certain features like repetitions, prolongations, hesitations, etc., along with secondary behavioral features as well. So, early assessment of fluency problem by a speech language pathologist can help an individual to provide therapy as well. So, what is this fluency assessment and how it is carried out? So, fluency assessment is carried out by a speech language pathologist, as I have told you, and the only thing here required is the client. So, the therapist may take 40 to 50 minutes to carry the assessment. By administering a standardized test tool, this assessment is carried out. We would record the client's speech to analyze the disfluencies, and this recorded speech will not be disclosed anywhere else without your permission or without your consent. After analyzing the disfluencies, the symptoms, the proper diagnosis of the problem is mentioned along with the causative factors, because the fluency disturbances can be caused due to n number of reasons like psychological stress problems or neurological conditions or learning errors or reduced competency levels or reduced proficiency levels, etc. So, the proper cause of the problem would be analyzed in this assessment, and based upon the existing fluency problem, the speech language pathologist will plan appropriate intervention program which is individually suitable, because even though fluency problem is present for 10 individuals, 10 individuals are unique, because every individual have personal factors and other important factors which may contribute to the prognosis of the problem. So every individual is different and unique. So the intervention plan for individual is unique. This kind of program is planned by speech language pathologist based upon assessment itself. So the assessment need to be done by a standardized assessment tools like stuttering severity index, and this is done by an interview method. The speech language pathologist will ask some questions to the client as well as the caretaker or the family member, like what kind of problem it is, when it is occurring, are you aware of the problem, and in particular with whom the problem is raised more, or in which context the problem is more or less, so etc. For all this assessment, it may take 40 to 50 minutes, and as well as the participation, the active participation of the client is very much important here. So I hope this information will be helpful to you all. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
Hi, this is Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. Dysarthria assessment. Dysarthria. What is this dysarthria? Before telling this, let me tell you about the speech. Speech is a motor act. As you know, language and speech are two different entities. Like, language is the mode, whereas speech is the code. For example, if an individual has proper linguistic abilities, but the motoric activity, only the execution is affected, that is due to any neurological impairment, then it is dysarthria. As you all know, brain is the major circuit which controls all our body movements. So anything you want to do, you need to get signal from the brain. So upper motor neuron system, lower motor neuron system, we have different nervous system. So the signals which are carried out from the brain to the body are important to carry out. Based upon the signal execution, the motoric activity is carried out. I'll make it easy for you to understand. If you want to hold or if you want to pick up the phone which is in front of you and your brain is sending the signal to you, take your phone. Then, based upon the signal which is passed on from the central nervous system, from the brain to your arm, will carry out the action. For carrying out this action, your hand need to be moved from here to the object, phone. The signal carrying out has any problem, you may not be able to reach the object to the complete extent. So your arm may only move to a certain extent and stop, or else it may be over execution. Like, you may have a jerky movement where you will cross the target object phone and move your hand with a jerky motion. So these two conditions are abnormal. Whether it is hypo movement or hyper movement, both are abnormal. To receive the target, to take the particular object, particular direction, movement in a particular direction with a range of motion, with accuracy in speed, direction are necessary. If any of these parameters are affected, then your execution is affected. Similarly, with the speech also, the speech apparatus are your mandible, lips, tongue, etc. So, respiratory system, that is your lungs, phonatory system, that is your larynx, and the articulatory system, as well as resonatory system. These four systems need to be coordinatedly worked out to produce proper speech. If there is any miscoordination between these four subsystems, your speech execution may be affected. So the signals which we receive from the brain to these four systems need to be carried out appropriately. Due to any neurological impairment at upper motor neuron system or lower motor neuron system, your speech may be affected. That is nothing but a neuromotor speech disorder, dysarthria. It is of different types. So, the proper assessment of dysarthria is carried out by a speech language pathologist by observing the client directly and by doing direct assessment of these four subsystems by using a standardized test tools like franchise dysarthria assessment. The test may take 1.5 hours on an average. So the preparation for this test from the client end is nothing but he need to be cooperative, actively participating and willing to share the information. So by doing this franchise dysarthria assessment, by interviewing certain questions to the client as well as the family members, by considering the medical reports, by recording the client's voice and speech to do analysis, so that the speech language pathologist can analyze the speech and diagnose which kind of dysarthria it is, what is the severity of the problem, how are the voice aspects, respiratory aspects and suprasegmental aspects, etc. All these need to be analyzed by a speech language pathologist. Finally, a provisional diagnosis is provided so that therapeutic intervention program can be planned well by targeting each aspect which is affected. So before starting the intervention plan, a thorough examination or thorough complete assessment is necessary to get clear picture about the existing problem, symptoms of the problem and how it can be intervened. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
Hi, this is Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. Pragmatics assessment. Pragmatics is a skill. It's a linguistic skill. It is to deal with the appropriate usage of language in a social scenario. It is about how to use the language, what to talk, how to talk, to whom we should talk, and it is completely based upon the context, the situation, the people. So it is a part of communication aspect, very important aspect. If the individual have good language skills, good speech execution, but still if he doesn't have proper pragmatic skills, if he doesn't know how to talk to an individual based upon the opposite person, age, gender, and his cadre, the pragmatics differs a lot. So how you talk to an individual is completely based upon to whom you're talking, what you're talking, etc. If you're not able to judge appropriately and carry out this condition, this speech task appropriately, then your communication is impaired. So in particular, if an individual is having less IQ, if an individual is having borderline intelligence or communication disorders like ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorders, and other conditions as well, may have pragmatic impairment. So if the child is having proper language abilities, but still if he has pragmatics impairment, then he is lost. So pragmatics assessment and intervention appropriately in the early stage itself is mandatory. So this assessment is carried out by a speech language pathologist by a questionnaire. It is norm-based assessment. So the assessment and the questions included in it is basically based upon the age as well as the cultural norms, because culture is very much important to say it is socially acceptable or not acceptable. So norm-based criterion assessment is done for this pragmatic assessment. I would suggest all the individuals who have communication impairment should undergo this pragmatic assessment for ensuring that they are learning social use of language well. Thank you and all the best from Pinnacle Blooms Network.
Autism spectrum disorder, psychological problems are troubling approximately 80 crore people across the world. Could endanger your children's future too. Pinnacle Blooms Network is probably the only chain of child development rehabilitation therapy centers offering smart goals-based speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, psychological counseling for kids to be part of mainstream society and bring smiles into their families. Pinnacle's Mirracle is 360-degree patented digital platform to bring technology for empowering kids with special needs. Pinnacle Blooms Network is special edu healthcare unit of Bharat Healthcare Private Limited, Government of India's prestigious Startup India awarded futuristic health tech organization. Largest team of proven therapists ready to work with your kid. Contact us today 9100-181-181 for free assessment.
This is Dr. Haripriya, audiologist and speech language pathologist working for Pinnacle Blooms Network. Communication temptations. What are these communication temptations? For whom it is useful? Let us know about this information today. Communication temptations are very much useful for all the communication disorders, because autism children, they doesn't want to talk. They don't want to talk. Even though they learn words, they don't want to communicate. They don't want to use those words for communication purpose. So, what we have to do is create a temptation in them so that the desire to talk, desire to communicate increases. So, these communication temptations help the child to think, to react, and to express themselves. So, how to implement these communication temptations? Many times, parents say that in your therapy session, the child is expressing these words, but at home, when I'm trying to teach him, he is not at all cooperating to me, and he is not expressing any words. So in this situation, you need to create an environment for the child to attempt to talk. You create a situation. So how this can be created? You have to create a desire for the child to talk. That is basically done by using different opportunities or situations at home. That is, you make the child express himself. Like, you take the food which he likes the most, but you don't offer this to him. You eat it, or you give this to the other peer group child, other sibling. Then automatically, because that is his favorite food, he wants it, right? Then you prompt him that you also want, do you want this? Then if he responds, if he reacts to your question, then your attempt is successful. So you have to create a temptation in him to talk, to communicate, to ask. He should understand the necessity to communicate. Unless he communicates, his requirements will not be satisfied automatically. This he need to be understood. So you take out the toy and play around so that he gets interested and he asks for the